Okay, now I wanted to point something here. You see this spring assembly here? When you go to disassemble this, you may run into a problem trying to get the cover off because you'll remove it and then it'll be like, what? I can't get this off. That's because there's two pieces that go into here. See how it's yellow in the left hand corner lower part of the screen? That's one of them. If you ease the cursor up a little bit, there's another one in there. Just get it. There, see that? That's the one that you need to remove first before you get to the one that's underneath it. If you're in a bad position, it's harder, especially if it's somewhere like this kind of position. Getting in a better position helps, because it makes it easier to be able to gain access to it. So you take the top piece off. Now you see it still looks like there's something there. And then we take off the bottom piece. So when you're taking and you snatch one of these off and then you get down and start doing other stuff, keep in mind there's two that go in here on the top part of this spring. So therefore, if you're missing it and you don't put it in, because you just put in the one, then you're not going to be able to finish the job. So always double check that part of the work. Now we're going to go over this part of the suspension. Now this thing uses a drum. We have a cap that goes in the center. So we had the drum. These bolts attach the drum to the hub so it doesn't just slide off. This over here is the axle hub. These are your braking systems for this car. Now, the axle can be removed without the tire. I think I showed this already. The rear axle joint can be removed without the tire being taken off. But the rear wheel hub, clearly, for obvious reasons, you need to have the tire off to get that. Plus, when you're taking this apart, you have to make sure you get everything on here. Because some of these parts will be in the way for removing this entire control arm system. So as you can see here, I have that. I had the shock that's in the way. That's it. And that is about as complicated as it gets. Okay, I wanted to show you something else with this for a shortcut. You see you're busy working. I like having to change that little control arm there. First we get this out of the way, obviously. Then we go ahead and get this. See how difficult that can be. There we go. So we'll go ahead and clear this. And then this. And then this. And then this. Oh, see that? That cool or what? May not be accurate to the other vehicle because I really don't see mechanically how it can be. But you know what? Kind of think of it, it's like completely unbolting the entire assembly off the control arm, but except you can't, in the game, it's not enough to get it out of here. But in real life, you just put it on the ground next to the tire. So I guess it's plausible. So I wanted to show that. Okay, we're going to take a look at the front suspension of this car. I like these tires. I think they're a cool design. Now, as you can see, that's exactly what you think that is. That is a leaf spring system down here. It serves the purpose as a lower part for the axle as well as the low control arm, and controls the bounce as well as part of the support system. Kind of like how the Model T was, really, except the Model T had two of them, one above, one under, I think. And I think they were I think they were on a straight axle, more closer to the more when the cars were first coming out. But nevertheless, it's neat. It also reminds me how the Volkswagen was when it was begin. Not the new Volkswagens. I never did care for those. The old ones. So that's where that comes in. The other thing I think that's neat is this. Now they have it on this, but they didn't do it on the others because, like, they got about 3 cars here I've seen, maybe 4, that are like muscle cars, and them older cars use this for their upper control arm because this is how it's put together up here. Your suspension would have been adjusted through this. This would help adjust your camber because there would be shims that would be placed in here to decipher how far this goes in or out to control the lineage of this tire to decide if it's rolling on the outside or the inside of the tread line. But he didn't put it on those cars. They gave him the kind of control arms that the other cars had. But this one has the control arm. I don't know if it's used the same way because it sure looks like the same kind of setup. Anyways, when you're dealing with these, they're bushings. And this is what I wanted to point out. These bushings, this small rubber bushings, these cars have bushings too. And when you see something that says bushing is missing, most of the time you're not looking in the right place. That's why I explained in the last one. There are 4 bushings on that frame of that last car. I made it clear that it's going to be very common between that and the rear cross member. So when you're screaming looking at bushings, let me help you out. You're not going to find the bushings in the brake pump. You're not going to find them on the engine. You're not going to find them in the toolbox. You're not going to find them in the paint room, not at the office desk, not over here at this counter, that corner. You're not going to find it anywhere. And if I'm being a jerk about it, I'm sorry. But that's just the way it is. Because the bushings go on moving parts. Like this. This is a moving part. The bushings are always going to be found in places like this. See? I didn't even have to remove the whole steering knuckle. I showed that on the one tutorial. Towards the back of the rear steering knuckle, it had one of those bushings towards the bottom, as well as on the frames. Look on the frames. Look over in the steering knuckles. Wherever a bushing could be at, you're going to find them. They're there. It's not like they disappeared someplace because the game is playing a practical joke on you. You have to look. That's all there is to it. There's no getting around that. Okay, now this is the brake pump. This is actually removable from the underside of the car. Now, I don't know if it actually really is uninstalled, so I'm not going to nitpick all that. I'd have no idea where the mechanical location of this is at. I just know you have to go under the car to get this out. For all I know, that's how it's done. I mean, I don't see how you can get the oil in, but it is what it is. So when you pull this off, you have to get it from below the vehicle. Plus the rubber bushings, there's one here, and there's one back up here. See that? Those are removable. This has its own, inner outer tie rod in the steering rack. I think more, for the most part, a lot of this is pretty much self-explanatory. Oh, I forgot. Maybe I show you what's going on in here. Come on. Here we go. Okay, just like the other one, we unbolt it. Now, you're probably figuring, well, I've seen drums and brakes and blah. This one here uses what's not available once again on them older cars that you can get. Well, they have this system too, but they don't have it on them. But here, it is on the Maluch. See what I just popped off? Then this assembly comes off. See this spindle? So it is available here. So those were the parts I wanted to show. This is like a bearing. It's a tapered bearing is what it is. See? And it uses a spindle nut, which would be a castle nut. On the other car, what will be is you'll have an inner outer tapered bearing like this that would be riding on the hub, and then this would be a castle nut that would tighten that up. So what is not available on those cars apparently is on here. Okay, so I believe I covered everything for this vehicle and explained it. Now, if you have any other questions about the vehicle, you're really going to have to look it up. I only looked it up for what I needed to know, if this was a real vehicle or not. The mechanic ability is because I've been working on cars for, I've been working on mechanics for a long time. And anybody else who has been would pick it up no different than me. So, but to understand the rest of the vehicle, you're going to have to look it up. It's a Maluch. It is a representation of a Pulaski Fiat 126. That's what you would be looking up. Okay, moving on.